It hit me suddenly while I was brushing my teeth this morning. Man, something is definitely different about my wife. I'm Ethan, and I'm 58 years old. My wife is Claire. After 28 years of marriage, you'd think noticing a change in your partner wouldn't be a big deal, right? But this time it was different. This wasn't just, oh, she got a new haircut. This was profound. Something had fundamentally shifted in her, and I had been sensing it for a while. You see, since she turned 55 and we started looking down the barrel of our golden years, Claire had been struggling. She complained more and more about those aches and pains, heavy shoulders, back discomfort, the kind of stuff that just wears you down. She was waking up multiple times in the middle of the night, and she'd start the day still feeling exhausted. Honestly, seeing her like that, seeing the physical weariness on her face, it genuinely hurt my heart. She's my partner, and watching her lose her spark was tough. But lately, the spark is back. Good morning, Ethan. I heard her voice chime from the kitchen, just like always. She was already getting her routine practice done. But this morning, there was a lilt to her voice, something almost sensual, not overtly seductive, but definitely a richer, happier resonance than the tired drone I'd gotten used to. I rinsed the toothpaste foam from the sink, pulled myself up, and headed toward the kitchen. Good morning, Claire. How are you feeling today? I asked, genuinely curious. She turned around from the stove. Oh, I slept great, actually. The practice was good, too. She let out a satisfied sigh as she adjusted her robe. And that's the moment it really hit me. I actually gasped just a little. Her skin had a glow. It was something I hadn't seen since we were in our 30s. Her face was slightly flushed, and her eyes were shining again. They weren't just bright. They were glowing. That's really good, I told her, genuinely happy but also utterly confused about the sudden turnaround. Deep down, I was asking myself, why the huge improvement all of a sudden? Claire chuckled, and even that sound seemed new. The truth is, I got a massage yesterday, she explained, already prepping our usual breakfast. A friend recommended someone amazing. Oh yeah? Where'd you go? I asked, reaching for my coffee mug. They do home visits, actually. They have this great reputation, and they're specifically for women, she clarified. It's called the End Service. The End Service? Okay. Yeah, being exclusively for women gives you peace of mind, you know? It's a good setup. I feel fantastic. Well, if it makes you feel this much better, why not keep going? I said, relieved just seeing her energized. Yes, I think I'll try to schedule a massage about once a week. Claire's reply sounded light and happy. Almost giddy. I simply assumed it was a relief of finally feeling well again. I mean, what else would it be? That night, I got home from work, and instead of finding Claire tucked away in the kitchen preparing dinner, she was sitting next to me on the sofa, watching TV. She looked completely relaxed. Good work, she said, giving me a warm smile. How was your day? It was the same old thing, I replied. How about you? You seem to be feeling really good. Maybe it's the effect of that massage you mentioned this morning. Oh, it totally is, Claire answered, and she stretched languidly right there on the sofa. I was a little surprised. Her gesture looked sexy. We've been married a long time, and I hadn't focused on her casual movements like that in years. The way her back arched and the way her robe slightly parted, it caught my attention instantly. By the way, what kind of person is a masseuse? I asked, try to sound casual as I loosened my tie. He's very attentive, she said vaguely, but with clear satisfaction. He's reliable and really understands a female body well. Okay, but is it a man or a woman? I pressed a bit. Oh, right. I didn't mention that. He's not some older guy. He's surprisingly young. But honestly, he's incredibly experienced and reliable. The word young made me pause for a second, but she'd said it was a women-only place. So I mentally shrugged it off. It must be some highly specialized niche service. If it helped her, I wasn't going to get hung up on the details. A week flew by. It was a Tuesday night, and Claire had scheduled another one of those massage appointments. The Masseuse is coming again today, around 7 o'clock, she reminded me. Got it. I'll make sure to be quiet, I said, being careful not to disturb her therapy session. I figured it would be best if I stayed in my little home office. Around 7 p.m., the intercom rang. I was in the hallway, grabbing a bottle of water, but I heard a brief conversation at the front door. Thank you for your hard work. I look forward to serving you again today. It was a man's voice, deep, smooth, and friendly. I tilted my head, confused. This was supposed to be a women-only massage parlor. Why was a man's voice saying, "Thank you very much"? Claire's response was a little higher pitched than usual, a small nervous sound. Feeling suddenly uneasy, I listened intently. From the living room, where the session was taking place, I could clearly hear the sounds of a massage bed being set up, followed by a slight clink as an oil container was opened. Then, soft, gentle healing music began to play. "How are you feeling today?" the man's voice asked. "Yes, I'm feeling great. Thanks the last time," Claire's voice replied, clearly relaxed. But I felt like there was some other emotion mixed in there, a certain kind of quiet excitement. "That's good. Let's continue with the whole body massage today as well." The man's voice sounded gentle and professional, perfectly calibrated to be soothing. But a sense of unease, a feeling I couldn't quite name, was starting to spread through my mind. About an hour later, the treatment seemed to have ended. I heard a muffled exchange of farewell greetings at the entrance and the sound of the door closing. "Good work." I called out to Claire as I emerged from my office, trying to keep my voice light. "Ah, thanks." It felt so good. Claire's expression was incredibly relaxed and at the same time filled with a deep private satisfaction. Her skin was literally lustrous, and her eyes were moist. She had the unmistakable glow of a woman in love. The seed of doubt I planted earlier started to sprout. The Masseuse seemed to be a man. "I thought you said it was a women-only salon." I asked, deciding to address it directly. Claire didn't falter. "Ah, I didn't explain it well enough. Women only means the treatment is specialized for the female body. The therapist is a man, but he's very trustworthy, Ethan. He understands our issues." Her explanation was logical, but something still remained unsettling for me. The look in her eyes, it wasn't just physical relief. "Please," she added, giving me an earnest look. "Well, that's fine," I said, putting on a show of being convinced. But deep down, the doubts were multiplying. That night, after getting into bed, I lay awake watching Claire as she slept beside me. Her face was calm and her breathing was soft. But there was something sweet about her breathing, a kind of contentment that I had never noticed before. Was it really just a massage? For the first time in 28 years, a tiny, cold seed of suspicion began to grow in my mind. But at the same time, it had been a long time since I'd seen Claire so vibrantly alive. If this massage was improving her physical and mental health this dramatically, was that really a bad thing? The internal conflict was sharp. I was torn between suspicion and relief. The next morning, Claire was up earlier than me. That hadn't happened in years. I got up, still wrestling with the unsettling mix of suspicion and relief from the night before, and found her in front of the bedroom mirror. She was meticulously styling her hair, trying out a volume she hadn't bothered with since a major family wedding 5 years ago. Her movements were clearly different, conscious, almost as if she were preparing for an audience. "Do you have any big plans today, Claire?" I asked, trying to sound genuinely inquisitive, not accusatory. Her answer was breezy and natural, almost too natural. "Oh, no, just a regular day. I might finally reorganize the linen closet." "Why?" she replied, turned to smile at me. It was a bright, dazzling smile, but I couldn't shake the feeling that her explanation wasn't the full truth. My mind kept flashing back to that man's gentle voice and the look of pure, unadulterated satisfaction on her face after he left. As I got ready for work, rushing through my own morning routine, 1,000 thoughts raced through my head. It was wonderful to see my wife, so lively. Truly it was. But the change was so sudden, so dramatic, and that unmistakable hint of something hidden, something secret, gnawed at my professional, orderly mind. Could my wife of 28 years, the woman who schedules her life by the minute and chooses comfort over glamour, really be hiding something? And was I being foolish for trusting that a young man, massaging my wife in our own living room was purely therapeutic? The more I tried to push the thoughts away, the louder they became. It felt like a betrayal of our long history, a sudden, sharp, unexpected plot twist in a book I thought I'd already finished reading. The train ride to the office was torture. I stared out the window, but all I saw was Claire's face, flushed, vibrant, and secretive. 28 years. Could all that trust be shaken by one man and a bottle of massage oil? The sheer absurdity of the thought made me feel irrational, yet the emotion felt very real. Once I got to work, the mental static didn't clear. My concentration was shot. Forget paperwork. Even simple conversations with coworkers felt like wading through mud. I kept replaying the man's voice, the sound of the oil container opening, and the way Claire's breathing had sounded that night. I needed an outside perspective. I needed to talk to someone rational, someone who wasn't emotionally invested. In the afternoon, I cornered my colleague Mark in the break room. Mark is a few years younger, happily married, and usually has a wry, pragmatic take on things. Mark, I need your honest opinion on something, and please don't judge me. I began, pouring a cup of coffee. Lay it on me. What's strange? Mark replied, leaning against the counter with a slight, knowing smile. It's Claire. She's been different. She suddenly became much more seductive since she started these massages. I explained, feeling a blush creep up my neck even saying the word. Mark just laughed. Dude, that's a good problem. Most guys your age are praying for that kind of change. I guess your wife is finally feeling better, which is awesome, right? Maybe you should be sending the masseur a thank you note. That's the logical conclusion, yes. I know that I insisted, pacing slightly. It's true she looks amazing, but I can't shake the feeling that I'm overthinking it. But then again, a young guy giving her these women-only specialized treatments, I don't know. Mark turned more serious. Listen, Ethan, taking care of your body is important, especially for women in their 50s. Hormonal changes, stress, it all compounds. Maybe this guy is just genuinely good at what he does. He's probably found a niche in the market, specializing in postmenopausal well-being. Look, if she's happy, healthy, and looking that good, maybe the best thing to do is just accept the gift. Don't go looking for trouble where there might only be deep tissue therapy. Mark's words made perfect sense, but my anxiety stubbornly persisted. The rational part of my brain was nodding, but the husband part, the protective, possessive, deeply confused part, was screaming. That evening, I did the unusual thing. I finished work early. I wanted to see her. I wanted to observe. When I returned home, Claire was in the kitchen preparing dinner, but the difference between this Claire and the Claire of 3 weeks ago was staggering. She wasn't just cooking. She was whirling. She was singing a little tune under her breath, a little Hanayuta, as we used to call it, and her movements were incredibly light. Welcome home. You're early today, she greeted me, her eyes twinkling. Yeah. Finished up a bit early, I murmured, watching her. I noticed something else. She was wearing a thin layer of makeup, just a touch of lipstick, a slight definition around the eyes. Why was she wearing makeup when she was just planning to spend the evening at home with me? It was a small detail, but it felt monumental. It was another sign of being on display or conscious of her appearance. During dinner, I decided to press for the key detail I'd missed. So, about the masseur, you mentioned he was trustworthy. What's his name? Oh, his name is Julian, she answered immediately, reaching for the salt. Julian. He's very polite, very reassuring. Julian. I engraved the name into my mind. I thought I'd like to find out more about him someday. I need to know his story. After dinner, we settled down to watch TV. But then Claire abruptly stood up. I'll run the bath now. Thank you, I replied. As she headed toward the bathroom, I noticed it again, her walk. It was sexier than before. There was a seductive quality to the subtle sway of her hips that I had genuinely never seen in the 28 years we've been together. It was alluring, yet terrifying. What on earth is going on? I muttered under my breath. Her changes clearly seemed like more than just the therapeutic effects of legitimate massage. But I had no concrete proof, only a mountain of circumstantial evidence. And more than anything, the fact that Claire seemed so authentically happy and revitalized completely clouded my judgment. How could I condemn the source of her renewed joy? That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the glow from the streetlights painting pale stripes across the wall. I kept imagining this man, Julian, in our house. I pictured Claire falling asleep next to him with that same satisfied expression. Listening to Claire's warm, steady breathing next to me, I made a decision. It was time to stop observing and start planning. I would wait a little longer, but if this feeling, this cold nod of suspicion, continued to grow, I was determined to find out the truth. 3 weeks had passed since the first suspicious Tuesday. Every morning, I found myself staring at my own tired face in the sink, contrasting it with the blooming vitality of my wife, Claire. I kept running through the possibilities, trying to figure out the true nature of the so-called massage and what changes it was truly bringing to our 28-year marriage. The changes were no longer subtle. They were glaring. The sheen on her skin, the undeniable softness of her expression, and, most confusingly, the delicate, sweet fragrance that seemed to waft from her constantly. It wasn't her usual perfume. It was something foreign, something alluring. Good morning, Ethan. Claire's voice rang out again this morning, bright, resonant, and full of life. I turned around. She was wearing a light pink blouse and had applied noticeably more makeup than usual. She looked fantastic, but the underlying sense of artifice bothered me. "Good morning," I mumbled. "Anything special planned today?" "No, I'm just in a good mood," she answered with that same dazzling smile. It was a brightness I hadn't seen in nearly 3 decades. Deep inside, I felt a complex, inexplicable mix of relief, jealousy, and utter bewilderment. "That reminds me," I said, trying to sound casual. "Is Julian coming this afternoon?" I tried to keep track of their appointments now. "Didn't he just come the other day?" "Oh, I've started asking him to come twice a week now," she explained, tidying up the kitchen counter. She elaborated, "My physical condition is so much better, and he's so helpful." The twice-a-week explanation seemed natural, a sign of dedication to wellness. But the feeling that she was actively hiding something refused to leave me. At work, my concentration was a mess. It was down to about 30,000 feet, floating uselessly above my head. During meetings, I couldn't get the name Julian out of my mind. During my lunch break, I finally gave in. I opened my browser and hesitantly searched the internet for Julian massage and then mobile massage niche services. I couldn't find any concrete information on Julian specifically, but the search results painted a broad, eye-opening picture of the mobile massage industry. I learned that there was a huge variety of services available, some of which, I had to admit, apparently went far beyond the realm of simple relaxation. I saw discussions of services dedicated to emotional release, couples counseling through touch, and, yes, some that hinted at intimacy and sensuality. No way. Claire wouldn't. I shook my head hard, stating out loud that our situation couldn't possibly involve anything like that. But deep in my gut, the small seed of doubt I planted weeks ago had grown into a gnawing, thorny bush. That evening, I did the unusual thing again. I finished work early, right on schedule. On the way home, I stopped at a florist and bought a large bouquet of deep red flowers. I told myself it was for Claire, an expression of my gratitude for her recent positive changes. But honestly, it was also a weapon, a shield. It was a way to loudly assert my presence as her husband. At 6:30 p.m., I arrived at the station nearest to our home, a full hour earlier than my typical arrival time. As I walked a familiar route, I rehearsed what I would say. I imagined walking in, catching the mid-session, and demanding an explanation. Then, as I turned the final corner, I stopped dead in my tracks. An unfamiliar luxury car was parked right in front of our house. It was a sleek black sedan with expensive-looking tinted windows. Could it be Julian's car? I looked at my watch. 6:45 p.m. The session was supposed to start at 7 p.m., but perhaps he had arrived early. As I headed toward the front door, I heard the faint sound of music coming from inside the house. It wasn't the usual gentle healing music. This was something different, a jazzier, more sultry and mature sound. It felt like something out of a film. I paused. Normally, I would have entered the front door, shouting, "I'm home." But today, a cold, hard curiosity paralyzed me. I couldn't bring myself to announce my arrival. Instead, I made a spontaneous, silent decision. I would quietly enter the house through the back door. I unlocked the back door and slipped silently into the kitchen. As I walked down the short hallway toward the living room, the music became clearer, and now I could hear voices mixing in with the tune. "You seem more relaxed than usual today, Claire." It was Julian's voice, smooth, low, and calming. Claire's response came back, her voice clearly different from her usual conversational tone. It was sweeter, softer, almost coquettish. "Yes, my husband has been acting a little worried lately." "Worried he'll notice?" Julian asked, his voice low. "No, he's just vague," Claire replied. I held my breath and tiptoed to the door leading to the living room, pressing my eye against a slight crack where the door jammed at the frame. What I saw rendered me completely speechless. Claire was lying face down on the massage table, clad only in a small, white towel. Crucially, the towel was far smaller than a regular massage drape, intentionally or accidentally exposing a great deal of her back and the curve of her hip. Julian was indeed a handsome man, perhaps in his late 30s or early 40s. He had a good physique and was wearing a simple white shirt, which he had rolled up to his elbows. He was applying oil to Claire's lower back. "How about this area?" Julian's hand slowly massaged Claire's waist, but the movements of his hands were undeniably different from any therapeutic massage I had ever seen. They were not focused on muscle relief. They were intimate, closer to a caress. That feels wonderful," Claire whispered, her voice quiet and her breathing audibly quickening. The bouquet of flowers I was holding trembled violently in my hand. Was this really a massage? Or was this something else entirely? Now, let's have you turn over this time, Julian instructed gently. Following the instruction, Claire began to change her position. In doing so, the towel shifted even further, momentarily exposing more skin. Claire adjusted the towel shyly, but her gestures clearly showed her awareness of herself as a desirable woman. Julian began the massage on Claire's legs, his hands sliding slowly from her calves up to her thighs. "Your skin is so beautiful, Claire." Claire answered with a soft, shy sound, her expression clearly one of bliss. I couldn't bear to watch any longer. The air felt thick, painful. I quietly backed away from the door, slipped out the back door, and walked around the periphery of the house for a long time, my mind a churning, confused mess. About 30 minutes later, my mind still reeling, I returned home to the front door, trying to make my entrance sound as normal as possible. "Welcome home. You're early again today," Claire called out, her voice bright. I noticed, even in her casual greeting, that slight, faint huskiness I had heard earlier, that specific tone of a woman who has just been deeply touched, and her hair was ever so slightly disheveled. "Yes, I bought some flowers," I managed, handing her a bouquet of deep red roses. The gesture felt hollow now, a lie intended to mask my espionage. "Oh, Ethan, they're so pretty." "Thank you," Claire said, accepting the bouquet. But as she took them, I watched her hands closely. They were trembling slightly. Whether from lingering physical excitement or nervousness at my unexpected early arrival, I couldn't tell. "Is the massage over?" I asked, feigning ignorance as I took off my jacket. "Yes, Julian has just left," she replied easily. Her answer was natural, yet I knew, from what I had just witnessed, that she was lying. The treatment was certainly over, but the intimacy had clearly been the focus. "I see. How was it?" "It was very, very good. Julian's technique is truly amazing." Claire's eyes sparkled, but that sparkle, I realized was not in my stomach, was more than simple physical satisfaction. It was the exhilaration of a secret shared. Even when dinner time came, my mind was unsettled, my appetite gone. Claire was cooking as usual, and talking as usual, yet the aura emanating from her entire body was completely different from the woman I married. She was infused with a confident, almost sensual energy. "I've been feeling really great lately," Claire chirped while we ate, casually continuing the pretense. "That's good. The massage must be helping," I said, my voice flat. "Oh, it is." "Julian really understands a female body," she insisted. Those words made my chopstick stop midair. "He can give me very detailed advice about the female body, symptoms of middle age, and concerns unique to women," Claire explained, her tone earnest and appreciative. Her explanation was logical, clinical even, yet I sensed something else entirely. She was using the language of wellness to mask the language of desire and validation. "He understands your body intimately." All right, I thought bitterly. After dinner, Claire took a longer bath than usual. When she finally appeared, she was wearing a pale pastel pink dress. It was a soft, flowing, overtly feminine outfit. She hadn't appeared in the living room in such a delicate, sexy outfit since our honeymoon, let alone after a normal Tuesday work dinner. "New clothes?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "Huh, I bought it recently," Claire answered, looking a little embarrassed for a change of pace. Just for a change. Her expression clearly showed that she had regained her confidence as a woman, and that realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. I was looking at a total, vibrant transformation, but one that was entirely powered by a man who wasn't me. That night in bed, I lay awake, the image of her on that massage table burned into my memory. Claire's warm, soft breathing next to me sounded even more sensual than before. A faint, sweet scent, perhaps the specialized massage oil, wafted from her body. I felt a sudden, powerful urge to get up, find her cell phone, and check it. However, after 28 years of marriage, I had never once looked at my wife's phone without permission. The long-held moral boundaries of our marriage, though already compromised by my spying, prevented me from crossing that final line. I couldn't bring myself to do it. "Good morning, Ethan." Claire, shining brightly again, greeted me the next morning. I ate breakfast with mixed feelings, unable to get the sensual image of her sleeping face from a night before out of my mind. "Is Julian coming again today?" I asked, testing the waters. "No, it's a day off. It's scheduled for the day after tomorrow," Claire replied. I felt a slight, fleeting relief that I had a day to process. But immediately, the anxiety returned. She had permanently started coming twice a week. This was a dedicated, ongoing ritual. At work, I finally made the definitive decision. I had to tell Mark the whole ugly truth. I needed professional validation for my paranoia. Mark, the situation is actually a little more complicated. I began, and then I described everything I had seen the night before as objectively as possible. The size of the towel, the nature of the touch, the seductive atmosphere, and Claire's obvious pleasure. Mark's easygoing expression vanished. His face became serious. Ethan, that might not be a normal massage. That's a classic set up for something intimate. What do you think? I pressed, my voice barely above a whisper. To be honest, I think it's suspicious, Mark admitted. But if your wife seems happy, he stopped mid-sentence, clearly struggling with a moral implication. What do you mean by that? I asked, my voice tight. Well, it's a difficult question. It's not that your wife dislikes this, is it? I struggled to answer honestly. It certainly doesn't seem like she dislikes the treatment. In fact, she seems to be enjoying it enormously. Then all you can do is wait and see how it goes, Mark concluded, rubbing his temples. But in my heart, I had already made up my mind. I wouldn't wait. I'll find out the truth again the next day when Julian comes. I vowed. That night, Claire mentioned after dinner that she requested an extended massage the day after tomorrow. I've made it a 2-hour course, she explained brightly, so Julian can really get into the view. Her explanation seemed plausible. She was very tired lately. But to me, it sounded like a flag, a signal for something special and prolonged. I see, I said, trying to contain the sudden rush of anger and determination. In that case, I'll plan to be home later. Thank you, Claire said, apologizing for the inconvenience, but there was a palpable glimmer of expectation in her eyes. She was looking forward to it. 2 days later, I decided to leave work early and come home early again. This time, I intended to see it through to the end, whatever the truth might be. As I approached the house, my mind was a whirlwind of anxiety and resolve. What is my wife really doing, and what am I going to do about it? The sleek, black sedan had stopped again. I looked at the clock. 7 p.m., exactly as Claire had said. I took a deep, shaky breath and quietly slipped to the back door. This time, I was determined to face the most critical moment of our 28-year marriage. It was 7:15 p.m. I, Ethan, crept silently through the back door and positioned myself at the end of the hallway, right where I could peek into the living room. My heart was pounding, thundering out a painful rhythm against my ribs. I was prepared to find infidelity. I was prepared for a confrontation that would shatter our 28 years together. I was ready to witness the culmination of the Wednesday secret I believed Claire was harboring. I steadied myself and pressed my ear to the door, listening intently. The sultry, jazzy music was playing quietly, creating an intimate backdrop. I expected to hear sensual moans or whispered affections. However, the conversation that filtered through the crack was completely different from anything I had anticipated. Yes, recently, I've just felt like my husband has completely stopped seeing me as a woman. It was Claire's voice, but it was filled with a deep, aching loneliness, spoken with a vulnerability I hadn't heard in years. Then came Julian's voice, calm and measured, like that professional counselor, not a lover. And that's why you've lost confidence in yourself. That's why your body feels heavy. I gasped silently, clutching the edge of the wall to keep steady. Confidence? Julian wasn't talking about physical pleasure. He was talking about Claire's self-worth. It's true, Claire continued, her voice trembling slightly. After I hit 55, my body shape changed. My skin wasn't the same. I felt like I was nothing more than a functional wife and housekeeper to Ethan. A painful wave of guilt washed over me. I had been so obsessed with my own anxiety, my own feelings of betrayal, that I hadn't even grasped the true depth of her struggle. I had no idea that she had felt so invisible, so diminished. Julian's reply was gentle, infused with unmistakable kindness. But, Claire, you are a very beautiful woman. You just needed someone to remind you of that. You simply forgot. Kindness, not seduction. My treatments are designed to help women regain their innate beauty and confidence. It's certainly not inappropriate, Julian stated firmly. Inappropriate? He knew she was married. He knew about my suspicion, or at least, he was addressing the moral boundaries of their interaction directly with her. I was utterly confused. What on earth had I actually witnessed the other day? Was the intimacy I saw a necessary part of therapy? A niche treatment designed to rebuild confidence through touch? Claire spoke again, her tone now filled with gratitude. Thanks to you, Julian, I was able to remember who I was as a woman for the first time in a long time. And that's a wonderful thing. It is a wonderful thing, Julian agreed. But the most important thing now is to repair your primary relationship, your relationship with your husband. My heart hammered against the wall. Repair our relationship? How can I do that? Claire asked, sounding hopeful. First, make sure your husband realizes that his wife has changed. Then, make time for the two of you to talk it through, Julian advised. I finally understood. The change in Claire, the makeup, the glowing skin, the subtle scent, wasn't a sign she'd run off another man. It was a desperate, courageous attempt to regain her lost identity and, more importantly, to get my attention, Julian continued. In fact, your husband recently brought you flowers, didn't he? And your voice brightens whenever you mention him. That's a good sign. Perhaps your husband is starting to notice the changes in his wife. I nodded unconsciously, despite being hidden. He was right. Every frantic move I had made, the flowers, the questions, the early returns, was a direct response to her transformation. Men are slow to notice change, Claire, but once they do, they always respond, Julian concluded. That is certainly true, I thought, a massive weight lifting from my chest, replaced by a crushing wave of guilt. How blind I had been. About 30 minutes later, the treatment seemed truly over. I hurried out the back door, composed myself, and re-entered to the front door, this time with genuine intent. Welcome home, Ethan. You're early again today, Claire greeted me, her eyes satisfied, as usual. But this time, I understood the true, deeper meaning of that expression. I walked straight up to her. Hello, Claire. I need to tell you something honestly. She looked confused, perhaps bracing herself for a confrontation about the money or the hours. You become so beautiful recently, I said, the words feeling utterly sincere, not like the lies I'd spoken before. Claire's cheeks flushed, a genuine, delighted blush. You're already 55, I continued, mustering my courage. But age doesn't matter. You are my precious wife. Tears immediately welled up in Claire's eyes at those words. The wall she had built up over years of feeling invisible finally crumbled. The truth is, I recently realized something too. I confessed, taking her hands in mine. I hadn't truly seen you as a woman. Claire shed tears quietly. They weren't tears of sadness, but tears of pure, overwhelming joy and relief. It's not too late now, is it, Ethan? It's not too late for us to walk together again as husband and wife, as a man and a woman. I asked, looking deeply into her tear-filled eyes. No, Ethan, it's not too late, she whispered. That night, we spent time together as a married couple for the first time in a very long time. We talked honestly about our feelings and our failings, reflecting on the 28 years of silence that had crept between us. I've been feeling so anxious lately, Ethan, Claire admitted, leaning her face against my chest. Her body relaxed for the first time in weeks. Why didn't you tell me? I asked gently. I couldn't. I was afraid of what my husband would think of me. I apologize, Claire. I apologize for not noticing your feelings. The long-lost intimacy between us returned, fueled not by suspicion, but by honest, vulnerable communication. The next morning, the bedroom felt lighter, infused with a renewed calm we hadn't experienced in years. We lay together, talking not about schedules or bills, but about feelings and the quiet desperation that had almost consumed Claire. I've felt very anxious lately, Ethan, she murmured again, her face still nestled comfortably against my chest. I know, my love, I replied, gently stroking her hair. The intimacy, both emotional and physical, that had been missing for so long was slowly returning. It was a mature love, built not on new passion, but on profound relief of rediscovering trust. I made a firm decision. The man who had inadvertently saved our marriage deserved not just my understanding, but my profound gratitude. Claire, can you give me Julian's contact information? I asked. I want to meet him. I want to thank him for supporting you. Claire was surprised, but a genuinely happy smile spread across her face. You want to support this? She asked, her eyes shining with hope. More than anything, I affirmed. I want to thank him properly for giving you back your confidence. She happily gave me Julian's contact information. That evening, I finally worked up the nerve to call Julian. My name is Ethan. I am Claire's husband. I'm calling to express my deep gratitude for the help you've given my wife. I kept my tone respectful and direct. Julian's voice on the phone was exactly as I'd overheard it, calm, sincere, and professional. Thank you for calling, Mr. Ethan. It's truly a pleasure to hear how much better Claire is feeling. I was wondering, I continued, if we could meet and talk sometime. I have a lot I want to understand. Of course, Mr. Ethan. I'd be happy to. I can certainly make time, Julian agreed readily. There was no hesitation, no defensiveness, just professional accommodation. It confirmed everything I had learned while hiding by the door. The next day, I met Julian at a quiet, nearby European-style cafe. When he arrived, Julian turned out to be exactly as he sounded. A much more earnest and sincere man than the phantom lover I had built up in my paranoid imagination. He was well-groomed, professional, and had an aura of quiet integrity. "Julian, thank you for agreeing to meet me," I said, rising and bowing deeply, putting all my sincerity into the gesture. "I'm grateful for taking care of my wife." "Please, Mr. Ethan," Julian said, gesturing for me to sit. "I was just doing what was natural, what I was hired to do." "I have to be honest with you," I admitted, looking him straight in the eye. Initially, I was more than skeptical. I was suspicious. My wife had become so beautiful that I was confused and worried. Julian nodded slowly, a small, knowing smile on his face. Of course, that's a very normal male reaction when the balance shifts so dramatically. You saw the result without understanding the niche process. He continued, explaining his approach with the passion of a true specialist. My job is to help women, especially those in their middle years, rediscover their own beauty and self-worth. Older women often lose confidence because they stop feeling seen by their partners and their children. Claire was one of those women. "I see," I murmured, the guilt returning. But what she truly wanted, Julian emphasized, leaning forward slightly, was the love and attention of her husband. All I can do is create the opportunity for that. I provided external validation needed to spark her own internal confidence, which then gave her the strength to draw your attention. His words struck me with profound clarity. The truth was simple, yet devastating. I had forced my wife to seek an external mirror because I had stopped holding one up for her. "Julian," I said, reflecting on his honesty, "we would like to continue receiving your care, but now, as a couple—" He looked slightly surprised, but nodded enthusiastically. "As a couple, that is a wonderful goal. I also want to learn how to support my wife. I need to know how to use my hands to comfort her, not just how to fix things around the house." Julian smiled warmly. "I will be happy to help you both on that journey. True connection often starts with non-sexual, physical affirmation." A few weeks later, Claire and I began attending dedicated couples relaxation sessions with Julian. Under his careful guidance, we learned how to massage each other, how to express affection through mindful, non-demanding physical contact. I learned the gentle rhythm of touch that relieved the tension in Claire's shoulders. My hands, usually clumsy and focused on practical tasks, were surprisingly warm and comforting. Claire smiled happily as I massaged her neck. "Your hands are so warm, Ethan. I love this." "Your skin is so soft, Claire," I replied, genuinely reminded of her inherent beauty to the focused act of care. Julian watched us, satisfied. "You two are teaching each other something important as a couple," he noted. Claire looked at Julian with genuine appreciation. "Thank you, Julian. You taught us that the problem wasn't the marriage itself, but the lack of simple acknowledgement." "It's because you two care about each other," Julian replied humbly. "I simply created an opportunity for you to see each other clearly again." The suspicions were gone, replaced by a grateful understanding of this man who specialized in emotional well-being, a true expert in a valuable niche. Scene: Ethan and Claire's home, a few months later. A few months passed in quiet, comfortable growth. The couple's relaxation sessions with Julian became less frequent, simply because Ethan and Claire had successfully internalized the lessons. They no longer needed the external mirror. They were fully reflecting each other's needs and desires themselves. The shared touch, the conscious affirmation, and the open dialogue were now ingrained habits, replacing the years of silent distance. Then came a major milestone. Ethan's retirement date finally arrived. Ethan stood in the living room, looking around at the home they had built and shared, feeling a mix of relief and anticipation. Claire walked up to him, her face alight with genuine happiness and the enduring glow of her rediscovered confidence. She was still wearing the soft, vibrant clothes, but now they felt less like a shield against invisibility and more like an authentic expression of her inner joy. "From now on, Ethan," she said, taking both of his hands, "we'll have plenty of time together. No more rush mornings, no more late nights at the office." Ethan smiled, pulling her into a warm embrace. Now it's my turn to truly cherish you, Claire. I spent 28 years focused on providing a life, and the last few months learning how to live it with you. He held her close, feeling the familiar, warm weight of her body against his. I wonder, do you think we could be like lovers again? After all this time, after everything? Claire looked up at him, her eyes sparkling. Of course, Ethan. In fact, I think we can love each other even more deeply than when we were younger. That passion was raw. This one is refined. They smiled at each other, a genuine, understanding smile built on honesty, forgiveness, and shared effort. The age gap that Julian represented was no longer a threat. It was a symbol of the radical intervention necessary to save them from complacency. Scene, bedroom, night of retirement. That night, Ethan and Claire reaffirmed their love, not with the hurried, uncertain movements of a new affair, but with the secure, profound intimacy of a rediscovered marriage. It was a mature love that combined the deep trust they built over 28 years with the newly blossoming passion they had actively fought to reclaim. They found a new rhythm, one that honored both their history and their future. Claire murmured happily into her husband's arms. "Thank you, Ethan." "Thank you too, Claire," he whispered back, his voice thick with emotion. "Thanks to you being brave enough to seek the change, and thanks to Julian, I was able to find a true bond between husband and wife again." Outside the window, the night was still and quiet, a new chapter of their life, one where true, seen love was a foundation, was quietly beginning. Scene, morning after. The next morning, Ethan lay awake, gently stroking Claire's hair as she slept beside him. He looked at her face, which still carried that beautiful, contented expression. The so-called massage had certainly changed Claire. However, the change was never about infidelity or cheating. It was about regaining her lost confidence as a woman and reigniting her love for her husband. Ultimately, the niche therapeutic approach had ended up deepening their bond as a couple. "Tomorrow is the start of our new life," Ethan said softly, kissing her forehead. Claire stirred, opening her eyes. "Yes, this time, let's walk together as a truly married couple," she agreed. Their voices, once again, were filled with determination and deep, mature affection. This is how Ethan and Claire's story reached its unexpected equilibrium. The husband's feelings, which began with consuming suspicion, had eventually transformed into deep understanding and affection, and the wife's beautiful transformation didn't destroy their marriage. It enriched it profoundly. Their story became a testament to a form of mature love that only an adult couple, willing to look honestly at their own distance, can truly experience and reclaim.